Hello and welcome to everyone attending our webinar. The purpose of today's webinar is to review how B2W Track, in combination with Foundation or Vista, can move data and information across systems in order to help create efficiencies between operations and accounting. So what I want to do is start with some introductions here as we begin. I'll be your host today. My name is Anthony Salvatore, and I am a solutions engineer here at B2W Software for our sales team. Prior to joining sales, I spent a few years in our client services department as a member of our implementation and training teams. And joining me today will be Jake Howard, who is the manager of our support department and integration team. Jake will be managing the questions panel, so please feel free to pick his brain as we go through the demonstration today. And if there are any questions that pertain to the greater audience, I'll be happy to address them as part of our live discussion. Just a quick agenda here toward the bottom of the page. We will jump right into an overview where we'll discuss how information from accounting is being stored in B2W operations and how the data that is captured in B2W Track can flow into Vista and Foundation in order to drive some processes within those accounting packages. We'll then take a live look inside of Track to see how some key aspects of the integration, highlighting ease of use and flexibility along the way. And we'll save some time at the end for questions and to remind everyone of our next upcoming webinar. Next slide here, I thought we'd just kind of start with a description of what B2W Track is all about to kind of kick things off. B2W Track is designed to help you keep jobs on time and on budget by capturing daily performance data, and that data allows you to make faster, more timely adjustments out there in the field by analyzing real-time reports and dashboards. With B2W Track in place, you can structure the job however you'd like while capturing customizable field logs, so to ensure that the required details are being recorded and those field logs can be leveraged on a tablet by using the B2W mobile app. B2W Track is a member of our unified operations platform, which also consists of estimating, scheduling, and equipment maintenance elements. So how does B2W Track integrate with accounting systems? As just a quick overall general statement here, it's imperative that all IDs and codes are an exact match character-wise to how things are set up in Foundation or Vista. If things aren't an exact match, this will cause issues with information coming out of and going back into accounting. In just a moment, we are going to discuss what a cost code represents and how cost codes can be used to map to the accounting side. Resources such as individual employees and pieces of equipment are set up in B2W Track to match with accounting, and there are 3 different options to get them into the database. Resources can be imported from a spreadsheet or Excel file. They can come in by configuring web services, which will stay always on and listening in the background for any new updates that happen from the accounting side, or resources can come into Track using what is called resource integration. This will allow you to pull in new resources on a recurring scheduled basis in order to keep the 2 databases in sync, operations and accounting. Jobs are also set up in B2W, and jobs will include a set of pay items and cost codes in order to set the stage for how the job is being tracked against the original estimated quantities and budgets. The job setup itself is very flexible, and because of that, you have a few different options. You can either track the job exactly how you bid the work using a 1-to-1 ratio of items to cost codes. Costs can be grouped together to consolidate like work going from many to one or many to fewer, or items can be expanded out into multiple cost codes or phase codes to have a one-to-many relationship. Kind of continuing on here with the integration, with a real-time job cost system like Track in place, there is no more waiting for month-end in accounting in order to see how your jobs are trending. Field logs in Track provide users with immediate feedback, so they will not need to log into the accounting system in order to do daily work performance and to see how they are trending based on the original budgets. Furthermore, the same set of hours used for real-time job costing analysis within Track is the same set of hours that are sent to accounting in order to process payroll, therefore resulting in a single point of data entry that feeds both. Then, as all the job activities and the other things are submitted into the accounting side, a true-up can be run in order to bring the end-all be-all actuals into the job within B2W Track. So the big picture here, guys, is that this ultimately provides you with the best of both worlds, long-term accuracy without sacrificing immediate real-time trending analysis. So just to kind of discuss the basics, to level set here as we delve in, what is a phase code or what is a cost code? Simply put, a cost code or phase code is a way of grouping costs together based on certain matching aspects of the job. Cost codes are associated with a quantity and a set of cost budgets for a project that can be broken down by cost types, such as labor cost, equipment cost, cost of materials, and so forth. And cost codes are what we capture completed quantities and hours against out there in the field using field logs, giving us our bid versus did or estimated versus actual output. Cost codes serve as the primary means of communication between B2W Track and accounting systems like Vista and Foundation. So let's kind of go one step further here now, guys, and define some terminology across all three pieces of software, B2W Track, Vista, and Foundation. So simply put here, the two sets of terms that I would like to touch on before we delve in the software is B2W uses the term tracking account to represent the sets of quantities and costs that are part of a job, and the budgets within those tracking accounts are broken down by cost categories for labor, equipment, materials, subs, trucking, and so forth. So in essence, what we call tracking accounts in B2W can equate to phase codes in Vista and cost codes in Foundation, and cost categories in B2W are parallel to cost types on the Vista side and cost classes inside of Foundation. All right, so next slide here, guys, just an overall flow chart to talk about the main concepts. This diagram represents the various data points that can be passed back and forth between B2W operations or Track and various ERP systems. It is worth noting that B2W Track integrates with many other accounting systems that are common throughout the industry, such as various Sage products, Spectrum, QuickBooks, Computeries, and several others. But in general, this chart depicts here, as you can see, that resources such as employees and equipment can come into B2W Track from the ERP side, and that's the top line in the flow chart up here. And then on the left, as job costing and payroll data is captured inside of Track, that information can send labor hours, completed quantities, equipment hours over to the ERP side periodically here to update accounting for things like payroll processing and so on and so forth. And then once things are squared away inside of that ERP system, a true-up can be run that we see up top here to, again, update the actual values inside of operations to make sure that those two pieces of software stay in line. Okay? So now that we have a basic understanding of the overall flow of information back and forth, let's get down to some specifics here. So what I'm going to do is I want to start with Foundation first, and then we'll take a look at Vista here next. So here is an overview of the communication points when all three systems are in play: B2W Estimate, Foundation Accounting Software, and B2W Operations. Detailed budgets or pay items and cost codes can be imported into Foundation from an estimating system like B2W Estimate, and then the same details are sent directly from Estimate to Track, resulting in all three pieces of that software triangle having an exact match as far as the job setup. Next, we can set up resource integration from Foundation to B2W in order to achieve that single point of data entry. So for example, I enter a new list of employees or a new piece of equipment one time in Foundation, and those resources will come over to B2W using a scheduled task routine. And then inside of B2W Operations, as information is captured on Track's field logs, the employee hours, equipment hours, completed quantities, and so forth will go through an approval process, and they can be exported from Foundation and imported into the accounting side for payroll and billing. And the final piece here, after all the other things and information hit the project, they're brought together into Foundation using that true-up routine, which can be run in order to sync up the actual quantities, hours, and costs. So again, the two sides of the software coin, if you will, are staying on the same page. So flow chart here specific to our products and Foundation. Next slide here, very similar. Let's bounce over to a diagram now specific to Vista. So again, similar to Foundation, B2W Operations has a robust integration with Vista as well. Here you can see the same ability to export budgets from B2W Estimate and import them into the appropriate module in Vista, when all three systems are in play here. From there, we can set up that same resource integration in the upper right-hand corner in order to bring updated resources into operations, keeping those two databases in line. I can't stress enough the importance and the benefit of that single point of data entry between software systems. Now, a Vista customer can take advantage of an additional benefit, and that's what we call Vista job integration. So companies can now import job level details into operations directly from Vista, including contract items, phase codes, and cost budgets with just a couple of clicks of the mouse. And this will cut down the time and effort it takes to get accounting information out there in the field so you can start capturing that information and that data. Again, we export things like production hours, quantities for employee and equipment, linked to phase codes. Once they go through an approval, they can be sent back up into Vista, importing in order to drive accounting functions like payroll and invoicing. And then lastly, the same holds true here as far as that true-up routine is concerned. The actual hours, actual costs, and quantities can be matched up from Vista in order to true up your costing reports in B2W so the two sides remain a match. All right, so that is all I have for the wonderful world of PowerPoint at this stage. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of PowerPoint, and that's going to bring us right here into the home screen of the B2W operations, or the one platform here. So as we kind of, level set and delve in here, I just want to kind of first off mention that B2W operations is a browser-based system for the folks in the office. We also have a mobile app that can be used connected or disconnected in the shop or the field. B2W Operations is a single SQL database that consists of the three elements that you see right here toward the middle of the screen: B2W Schedule, B2W Track, and B2W Maintain. Now, a core advantage of the operation platform's single database here is that it allows for interoperability or communication between the software elements. So for example, when all three elements are in play here, the dispatcher within Schedule can create assignments, and those resources can be pulled onto your daily field logs within Track each and every day. A Track user in the field can then submit what are called needs requests to be seen by the scheduler, and the need can be filled with an actual resource assignment in Track, kind of coming full circle here. B2W Track users can also communicate with the shop manager and Maintain by submitting what is called a repair request as things break down in the field. And then when a work order is created and downtime is planned, the shop manager and Maintain can communicate directly back to the dispatcher and Schedule. So the substitution can be created, making sure that that crew isn't shorthanded due to the repair. So again, a lot of benefits, one database with those communication between our elements. The other advantage of all three living in the same database is that they all share the same set of jobs and the same set of resources. So if I pop open my resource menu here, you'll see kind of a list of the things that we can store. Now remember, these resources can be input manually. They can come in via CSV or Excel import, or the folks on the webinar today are at an even greater advantage because we can set up what is called Foundation and Vista resource integration in order to help keep accounting and operations in sync with that single data entry point. So again, as the example, in Foundation Vista, I enter a new list of employees, a new set of equipment details, and those resources will automatically come in to operations or Track based on a scheduled routine. So let's kind of just take a quick look at some of the details that we can match up to your accounting system. I'm going to pop into an example employee here, and I'm going to bounce into just a top example, Kelly, to kind of show you. As you can see, we bring over information about the employee's record exactly how it appears in accounting or Foundation or Vista. So we'll bring over things like first and last name, employee ID or payroll ID here, what business unit or division are these resources a part of. The integration key here, guys, represents a company code specific to Foundation or Vista clients using B2W. Basic contact information, phone numbers, email address, things like that. along with a list of labor types that match to the types of roles that your individuals can perform. So on top of just standard employee and equipment lists or resource records, you can also import different sets of costs or rates for labor and equipment using that resource integration routine. So if I pop open my resource menu again here, you can see this is where we will house or store any of your sets of equipment costs. We have the same thing down here for labor. And what I'm going to do is just bounce into labor rate classes. I'm just going to pop open any of these things to kind of show you around here. And again, this is where you're going to store a set of labor costs organized by what we call labor type on the left-hand side here. Labor types are going to be associated with employees on field logs, and they ultimately allow you to bring in regular time, overtime, and double time costs directly from accounting, again, using that resource integration. And what happens is, as field log data is exported, we can include an ID as part of the export line linked to the hours, and that ID can help determine the appropriate pay scale or wage rate upon import into the accounting side. So as you can see, we have two different options here. So a labor type ID or an alternate ID. Depending on how your accounting system was set up or implemented, some companies, we simply need a single part ID like you see here in order to drive accuracy upon import. Other companies may require a little more detail, more of a combination ID or a combination code. The Vista clients on the phone today can use the alternate ID here to store a combination code, which represents craft and class codes, again, depending on how your accounting side was set up. And these craft class code combinations can help accuracy, calculating labor costs and rates in B2W, as well as to help match up to the appropriate pay scale or hourly rate when you import hours back into Vista for payroll. Similarly, foundation customers, this alternate ID may be used to define what is called various trade sources that can link to the appropriate wages when you're importing hours back into foundation for payroll. So that is just a quick overview of some of the things that we can store within the resources area, which again is the first of the two setup areas inside of Track. The second setup area that we need to mention here is what we call the jobs area. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce into jobs here, as you can see. Now, this is an area that's shared across all elements, and jobs hold key information that will come into play within schedule, track, and maintain. And just note here, guys, that we can set up jobs to match or exceed the level of detail that your accounting system needs. So here we see a list of projects in my database that came directly from B2W Estimate, but remember, guys, they don't have to. Jobs can also come into B2W via web services. They can be added using a CSV import routine, or they can be manually entered inside of the application when needed. But for Vista customers on the phone today, going back to that PowerPoint slide, you have an additional option in that jobs can come in directly from accounting. So the same relationship in Vista, again, the contract items to phase codes to cost budgets, can be brought directly into B2W for field tracking and job costing. So to kind of review some of the flexibility of the job setup, I'm going to pop into an example job here. Right off the bat, you're going to notice a series of tabs toward the top of the screen. We'll kind of start here with some basic details and information about each job. The estimate items will bring in your bid items exactly how you estimated or bid the work. Tracking accounts are going to equate to those phase codes and cost codes. On the accounting side, production targets give you an option if you want to set up daily goals for your phase codes and cost codes. You can do that. We give you the ability when necessary to set up a job-specific list of materials here, so you'll know what specific materials and what dollars are associated with those resources. We can define subs and vendors that you may expect to show up throughout the duration of a project. Each job or project is going to have an activity tab that is a list of all of the field logs and true-ups that hit each individual project. And then we're going to see a dedicated tab for change orders and any force account or T&M work as those situations pop up. So as we review the job setup here, guys, I want to again refer back to the slides, and we describe the relationship between pay items and cost codes, so these next two tabs here. Remember that there are essentially three setup options as far as the relationship, a 1-to-1 ratio of items to tracking accounts or phase codes to cost codes. Cost can be grouped together to form that many-to-one relationship, or cost can be expanded out to go from one to many items to cost codes. B2W Track allows you to keep tabs on job progress by cost code, and these flexible setup options can change project by project, job by job. So with a system like Track in place, companies now have full flexibility as to how they're tracking their job progress in compared to how they estimated. So as the name of this job or project implies, we are going to group accounts or consolidate like work together, in this case based on cost code. So I'm going to come over here and click on my items tab, and you can see again a list of items exactly how you estimated or bid the work. I would say 30–40% of our customers choose to track the billable quantities or the revenue to date side separately than your true cost tracking. So if that's a need for you folks, we absolutely have you covered. The next tab here is what I would call the bread and butter, or the true meat and potatoes of Track. Again, we call them tracking accounts. You're going to call them phase codes and cost codes. As the name of this project implies, we've grouped or consolidated like work together, in this case by matching code, phase code or cost code. So these tracking accounts are what we're ultimately going to be bringing on field logs, capturing quantities and hours against, and that's what's going to drive that bid versus did, estimated versus actual comparison on our reports and dashboards. And the level of breakdown here with your cost codes or phase codes is going to represent the granularity, if you will, on your reports and dashboards, the level at which you have that feedback. All right. So B2W Track's flexible job setup here. As you can see, companies have complete control as to the level in which they're tracking. This gives contractors the desired level of detail on cost reports, along with a better means of benchmarking as you continue to analyze production rates across multiple jobs over a span of time. Right? So this is one example here. The next time I bid a similar job, I might want to expand things out a little further, but for this particular example, I've chosen to give the folks in the field less to manage or less to record. So on the flip side, I may have times where I need more detail and a more granular approach, if you will, to how I'm cost tracking. So to show you an example of that, I'm going to bounce back to the jobs area here, and I'm going to go into a second example. And again, as the name of this project implies, we are going to show the concept of going from one to many, kind of expanding or breaking things out here. So if I bounce into the Pay Items tab for this particular job, this is an example of a lump sum style estimate submittal. So I have the total price here for what it took me to actually build the bridge. Now, that's how I needed to estimate or bid the work. That's totally fine. However, one lump sum here probably isn't going to give me the breakdown or the level of detail that I need when I actually go to start tracking job progress. So because of the flexible job setup here, I can bounce into the tracking accounts area, and here you're going to see that the total cost of this project was built, in this case, based on 5 different phase codes or 5 different cost codes. So for my internal cost tracking, I'll now have visibility, for example, into how am I performing by cubic yard of pour walls and footings, or by square foot of form walls, giving me much better visibility than, again, just that lump sum style tracking. All right, so at this point, we've gone over resources and job setup areas. The next kind of logical area, let's bounce over to the field log area to take a look at data capture and see what those real-time analytics are all about. So to talk about field logs here, I'm going to bounce into the track area. Here is a list of field logs that have hit the system from either the browser or the mobile app. So this is kind of my master list, and I'm logged in as a user that can see everything. And just note that this list can be sorted by date, by foreman, status, by job, things like that, to kind of help you stay organized. And I'm just going to pop open an example field log here, and I'm going to bring this guy open in edit mode. And here you're going to start to see some of the things that we've already touched on live in action. So as we start to review this field log here, just understand the layout, the design, the look and feel is very customizable. You can, if you need it, we turn it on. If you don't need it, we turn it off. You can see right down here the job that we talked about. We're going to bring your jobs onto your field logs along with those appropriate cost codes or phase codes. And then I can see the daily production quantities that I'm capturing within this field here. But I also have visibility into other things, again, without having to take a peek at accounting. So for each account here, I can see the total estimated quantity dating back to the job or the project. What have I reported to date on field logs for this job and phase code or cost code combination? What did we do today? And then what do we have left or remaining? So I don't have to wait for a report or to make a phone call to accounting to see what have I done so far and what do I have left, all in relation to that original estimated quantity and budget. All right, so scrolling down here, I see a list of my employee resources. I'm allocating their hours appropriately to cost codes, as you can see over here. And then there's an example of how we can associate those labor types to your employee hours. They can be linked to those labor codes that will match up to the appropriate cost and wage upon export to the accounting side. You'll also notice right in the middle here what we call custom fields or custom properties. So you can set up these custom properties within each section, providing the flexibility to capture whatever is needed on field logs. Now, with Vista in place, companies can elect to include these custom property values as part of the data that's being exported out of Track to then be mapped and imported where it needs to live on the Vista side, giving you that ultimate flexibility. If you can capture it, you can send it to Vista. Coming down here, I see the same thing for my equipment resources, allocating their hours toward the appropriate cost code. And then I see something similar for materials, used versus delivered, and what cost codes or phase codes those costs need to hit. So continuing with the concept here of, the theme of no longer needing to wait for accounting, I'm going to go ahead and save and submit this field log. And when I do that, the system is going to bring me into a summary area now. So this is an example of the type of analysis or output that is visible from a foreman in the field who is using either the browser or the mobile app. So you're going to see this no matter where you're submitting field logs from. Just want to touch on some parameters toward the top of the screen. I can leave this thing wide open. If I have multiple jobs on a field log, I can take a look at my performance across everything, or I can narrow things down to kind of slice and dice this output however I choose. Similar thing here for accounts. Maybe I want to look at all of my accounts as a whole, or maybe I want to focus on cost code by cost code, phase code by phase code. I can absolutely do that. And then you'll notice down here some good output and information. What this is ultimately telling us is based on today's hours and quantities. So based on the 300 cubic yards of excavation and the 100 feet of pipe, dating back to the job or the estimate, we estimated that we should have used 49 labor hours and 23 equipment hours, but today we've captured 30 and 20 respectively. Now green is good, red is bad with the delta or variance. So in other words, we kind of kicked some butt. We did really well today, dating back to the original estimated quantities and costs. Down here, I can see just some overall summaries, total estimated for the job and cost codes, what's been reported to date. Again, I can see what we did today, and then what do we have left or remaining out there on the job. So what we kept hearing, inside of B2W's office here is that oftentimes companies will only have this visibility based on an accounting report that's generated after month-end closing, causing quite the delay in the feedback and the output. So the point here is that your operations folks don't have to log into accounting, touch accounting for any reason, nor will they have to wait either. The real-time reports and dashboards in Track are going to provide immediate feedback, resulting in more timely actions and faster adjustments throughout the life cycle of a project. All right, so let's keep things moving here and talk about what it takes now to export field log data that's being captured. So I'm going to bounce back to the main field log screen here within Track, and I just want to kind of mention quickly the statuses here. Field logs as they come in from the browser or a mobile app are going to have a status of submitted here. From there, they will be reviewed and they will either be approved or rejected. And then when I go to the next area here, the export area, this is where we're going to see just that. We're going to see a series of field logs that have gone through that initial review. They've been approved. In other words, they're kind of queued up, waiting to be exported and sent to accounting for things like payroll. So here, if I choose to, I might do weekly or bi-weekly payroll processing where I want to select an entire group or batch of field logs, or I can just come in here and kind of cherry pick and choose what I do and don't want to send. Then when I click next, you're going to see here a series of add-ins for the many accounting systems that we have a named integration with. So here's Foundations, Field Log Export add-in here. We have the similar thing down here for Viewpoint Vista. We also have a standard add-in as well that will simply export anything and everything that you're capturing to separate CSV files for you to kind of move forward and import where needed. So I'm just going to select Foundation here just so I can click next and show you the next screen. This is now going to give me a summary of what you're about to do. And then by clicking Export down here, the details on the field log or field logs that you've selected will be exported to a resulting file that will fit the requirements upon import of the accounting system, or in this case, Foundation or Vista. The resulting output file will include everything you need in order to drive payroll. So things like job number, cost codes, employee IDs, hours for employees and equipment. And again, the export can even include appropriate labor codes that will match up to accurate wages in either Vista or Foundation. So these export files can also include, guys, other bits of information, if you will, that will help ensure that the data is as complete as possible when importing into accounting. And these other bits of information, as I'm describing them, can come from what we call add-ins that are stored in the system. So I just want to take a moment and discuss the concept of add-ins so I can kind of show you what they're all about here. I'm going to bounce up here to the setup area, and I'm going to select the first option for our add-ins. This is going to allow us to kind of set up some configuration and some behavior when I'm importing and exporting information. So you can see right off the bat here, we can configure some things for job imports, resource imports. There's that true-up capability, and then various exports to different accounting systems. You'll see for Foundation, we have the ability to configure an add-in for field log exports and or that resource integration that we've been touching on. And then down here, we have quite a few for Viewpoint Vista, change orders, field logs, job, resource import configuration, work orders, and so on and so forth. So kind of continuing on with the flow here, I'll show you about Foundation, and then we'll take a quick look at Vista's specific add-in setup next. So I'm going to go ahead and pop into the Foundation Field Log Export add-in here. And as I do so, again, this is where we can tell the export behavior to do things like ignoring zeros. So if I don't want to flood my accounting system with some zeros, I got you covered there. We can determine, do we want to export equipment costs to a separate file? So I can choose to include equipment and labor in a single file, or I can group them together. Scrolling down here, we can set up your regular hour, overtime hour, and double time hour earn codes for Foundation. Same thing here as far as your usage types for equipment as far as operating, idle, and repair. This is that setting we talked about a moment ago, the ability to determine, am I using an employee trade source? What source of ID am I using when I export and supplement or complete those export records? And then lastly, down here, we have the ability, if we choose, to export things like start and stop times for employees. So again, as you guys can see here, these add-ins allow you to define some things that are specific to your company's Foundation accounting system setup in order to help enhance communication as things are exported and imported. So let's cancel out of here, and let's take a similar look to what we have set up for Viewpoint Vista. So I'm going to scroll down back here to my list of add-ins. I'm going to bring up the details of the Viewpoint Field Log export. I'll pop this guy in edit mode. And then again, you'll notice similar things. I have the ability to ignore zeros if I don't want them to hit accounting. I have the ability to determine, am I exporting equipment as a separate record, or am I combining it with the employee payroll records here? I do have the ability to determine down here earn codes for regular overtime and double time hours for Vista. Same thing, your earn codes for operating, idle, and repair if you have that need. Down here, you're going to see the ability to create a comma-separated list of any of those custom fields or custom properties that you may be recording on our flexible field log layout. and then you can choose here whether you want to set up an export to dump that information to separate columns so they can be mapped independently here. And then we also have the ability to determine, again, are we setting up the craft and class code? Are we exporting craft and class code information for labor, driving the appropriate cost wage, again, upon import into the Vista side? So again, we're storing a lot of good information here that's going to help jive and match up as the information comes from B2W Track and is imported into Vista. So the mindset here is with a combination of resources, jobs and cost codes, the field log data with these other details that we're storing inside of add-ins, companies can now take full advantage of a wide range of communication points, resulting in enhanced visibility and much less redundant data entry between operations and accounting software systems. So I'm going to go ahead, guys, and bounce back to the home screen here. At this point, we've gone over what it looks like to record and send field log information from track to accounting. The information can now come full circle back into B2W operations using what we call true up. So true up function inside of B2W allows you to bring the information from your accounting system and true that information up with your cost codes or phase codes. So the idea behind a true up is pretty simple. You are using track to store some average costs for things like employee costs, equipment costs, materials, and so forth. But in your accounting system, however, or Vista or Foundation, you are getting the actual labor costs for the job based on individual employee wages, the actual cost of equipment as they come in, actual materials and subs, and so forth. So that said, there could very likely become an inherent delta as you're tracking job progress within B2W over the course of your longer projects. So with a tool like TrueUp, we will allow you to bring those accounting numbers in based on a specific date. So now the numbers within track are an exact match to the numbers inside of Vista and Foundation, giving your project managers better idea as to where things stand on their projects, helping them to make those better decisions moving forward. So let's walk through quickly that TrueUp process. What I'm going to do to show you that is I'm going to bounce back here into the job area. Now, from within this jobs area and the appropriate add-in in place, I'm going to see the button in the upper right-hand corner that will allow me to run a true-up. This true-up routine involves importing data using a CSV import template. So what I'm going to do is I just have kind of a quick example here ready to go. I'm going to drag over my template here, and I want to show you that in this example, I have two cost codes, 2025 and 3990, that I'm going to be truing up for the same job or project simultaneously. Just a quick side note here, guys. You can have multiple jobs in a single true-up import file. A lot of companies choose to keep it clean and use individual files, but by all means, you do have options. So here now across the board, I'm going to see the values that I'm truing up and comparing against with what we've tracked. So here you can see that we will be truing up labor hours. We will be truing up equipment hours for each cost code. We will also be truing up and matching accrued dollars from accounting to see what we've accrued here inside of track. And then the last thing over here is we're actually going to match up some completed or produced quantities as well as the corresponding units of measure. By no means are we limited to the examples that we're using here. As you can see, we have other fields to choose from. So you can also true up values such as subs, trucking, miscellaneous, and even time and materials costs here as well. But in the interest of keeping things simple for today, we're going to use this file here to import sets of values for two cost codes associated with one job. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this file here. I'm going to be brought back now to B2W Track's job area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button in the upper right-hand corner, and that's going to bring me up a dialog box here where the first thing I'm going to do is browse out and find that TrueUp file here, on my messy desktop. So I'll go ahead and choose my TrueUp import. It is important to note that you do have full control as to the status of the field logs that the TrueUp information is being compared against. So in other words, if you want a true up to only compare values in track based on approved and transferred field log data, you absolutely can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click next here. Here I'm going to specify a date to which I am truing up the information. So here I am truing up hours and costs as of August 15th. This is essentially the cutoff date for this true up. And the next time I run a true up, it will be from today up until the next date that I specify. I'm going to go ahead and click next here. I have the option now to map columns from the CSV spreadsheet with the columns in the system that we are truing up. I determine whether or not that true up import file contains a header row, yes or no. And then if I've run this in the past, I can see the fields that I previously mapped here. But I just want to kind of take a moment to show you kind of the totality and the different options that you have, not just what we're leveraging or using for today's example. When I click next here, we're going to just do some unit of measure mapping. The units of measure in the true up file, we need to make sure match up to units of measure that we have inside a track. I say next here, the summary is just going to tell us that we're ready to go. We're ready to true up 2 records for a single job here. And then I'm going to say import. And when I do so, we are now going to see a nice kind of log here of exactly what just happened. And you'll see a summary of the job number, the cost codes that we've successfully imported. So now we have the confidence we know things are good to go. So I'm going to close out of here and let's go ahead and take a look at the effects of the job. So I'm going to bounce here into my Foxhill development job. I'm going to come over here to my activity tab. And right off the bat, you're going to see some rolled up totals toward the top of the screen here. So I can see the totals from the field logs that have hit the job so far here. So I can see accrued labor, equipment, hours, the same thing for costs for my different categories over here. And then I can see what we just did as far as that total true up adjustments that were made. So what these numbers are, is they're a representation of the total adjustments that were made as the net effect result of running that true up. So overall, that true up reduced 1 labor hour from my job. It reduced 3 equipment hours. I've reduced my overall job's cost by this labor amount and this equipment amount here. I've also added in some material costs, and then I can see the overall percentage as the overall dollar value rather, as far as the percentages of that true up adjustment as well. If I scroll down here, I can see the true up now as part of our kind of chronological history as far as the different activities that are hitting the job. And I can see those same rolled up totals as a whole here. But if I wanted to, I could click to drill down into this true up to kind of take a more critical look, in this case, by phase code or by cost code. So I can very easily see here the date that that true up was run. And then I can see again those rolled up totals, the net effect of that true up within the column headers here. But the details below are going to show me the individual calculations that are rolling up to the total hours and costs. So to kind of walk through an example here, I had added 24 labor hours as part of that true up to my install sod cost code, but I reduced my conduit cost code or phase code by 25 labor hours, yielding me that net result of -1. And then I can see the same thing here for my equipment hours. And then the same math holds true down the line for your different categories of cost here as well. So again, guys, the ability to bridge the gap with your accounting system is what this true up is all about. And it will allow for an easy way to bring those actuals into the job as far as your costing reports and dashboards inside a track. So the mindset is this will help promote that long-term accuracy without sacrificing immediacy, ultimately resulting in better decisions throughout the duration of your jobs or projects. All right, guys, well, that concludes what I had planned to show you today around the track system here as far as our overview and the integration with Vista and Foundation accounting systems. Hopefully, guys, the folks on the line here, my intention was to kind of maybe hope you learned something new or picked up a tip and trick along the way to help the flow of information be more efficient and have better visibility between systems. I can assure you that Jake and his integration team will continue to dedicate their time to make sure that the specs and requirements are being met so that B2W track and accounting systems can stay on the same page here. I am going to go ahead and bring back up the wonderful world of PowerPoint. And at this stage, I just want to kind of open things up for any remaining questions. that you might have or that you want to, use to pick Jake's brain here. So feel free to keep those questions coming. As we wait, I just wanted to take a moment here as a friendly reminder that our next webinar is right around the corner, 1 week away, August 22nd. And the next webinar will be on 5 ways to maximize equipment profitability with B2W Maintain. So that's something we're pretty excited about. That's a core concept that we want to address, and that's going to be right away next week, 7 days away here. While we continue to wait, I would just again like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. As always, feel free to call our sales department if you're, and we're more than happy to address any questions that you folks may have. Any customers that are listening in can always call our support department as well at any time. Please note, too, that an email will be sent out including a copy of this recorded session to all attendees in case some folks didn't have the chance to join today. If there are no more questions, again, thank you everyone for attending. Please keep a lookout for future B2W webinars, and everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you.